post-COVID world, we've just basically started including our animals in the conversation. It's like,
right.
there will be dogs, there will be kids, there will be the occasional UPS guy. It's just how we do these days.
Yeah, it's how it works.
Yeah. Excellent. We are live. We'll give them 4 more minutes to let the room fill up.
Right.
And, we had I was out in, we talked a little earlier last week about I go out to the city of Galt up there north of Lodi, and it was 111 on Saturday, man. Yeah, that was no bueno. But
yeah,
great show, man. We had the best time. Everybody in the city there is super nice, and the locals love us, and it's something we really look forward to doing every year. But the heat was nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, luckily it's cooled off here in Colorado. I'm about 70 degrees right now. So
excellent. What part of Colorado are you in?
Northern Colorado, just south of Fort Collins.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm actually making a road trip out to your neck of the woods here pretty soon, in January. You're gonna laugh when I tell you it's Casa Bonita, dude.
Dude, I know. I've been trying to get reservations.
Are you?
Yeah.
Hit me up on Slack at some point. I'll give you my Anders secret guide to that neck of the woods of Denver.
Yeah, for sure.
You'd probably dig it. But yeah, it's just crazy. I went there before the remodel, and it blew me away. I was like, not only is this place real, but it's everything South Park prepared me for and more. And now evidently they've done a full freaking remodel, not a remodel, but restoration. They didn't. They actually restored it.
I had some friends that were on the construction team. They said it's just down to the steel beams, and that was all that was left.
Wow. Yeah, and it's going crazy. All right, live streams are going smoothly across all platforms, so we'll give it another minute. I'm sure our audience loves hearing about the awesome that is Casa Bonita. Comments are rolling in. How far from Aspen? Hello from Germany. Hey everybody, thanks for coming in.
Hour and a half down I-70 to Aspen.
Yeah. It's because it's just southwest of Denver, right? It's not actually in Denver proper.
Correct.
Yeah, it's not Wheat Ridge, but somewhere out that neck of the woods.
It's very close to Wheat Ridge. Yeah.
I have so many stories I can tell you, but yeah, evidently they got a new executive chef that's off the hook, and they have free sapiflias as per normal, and black bart steak, which you got to do. Which at 6'5" was a little bit of an adventure for me. I still have the scars to prove it. But. All righty, folks, we are at the top of the hour. So thanks to everyone for joining. We are rocking and rolling here. Just kind of a heads up on some of the upcoming sessions that we have. Coming up on the 13th of July, which is next Thursday, we've got Getting Started, Understand Your Cloud and Costs and Save Money. So that's going to be a new session with Brendan Gordon and Nico Guerra. Definitely want to check that out. It's run on a little different format than this. Our Getting Started sessions are actually run on Bright Talk, not StreamYard, through your social platforms, but you can log right in, you can pre-register. There's actually a blog on the VMware management blog that I wrote. It's got the registration link in it. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be also blasted out on the social channels. So super good session. It does require a pre-registration, but we encourage everybody to do it. It's absolutely worth it. And much like this, there will be lots of direct Q&A. You'll be able to key right in and ask questions, get your questions answered. So come loaded with questions. Then the next one in the intermediate series is going to be on the 20th of July. We've got Vincent back, and this is going to be a high-level one on considerations when moving to SaaS. So definitely be on the lookout for that. A lot of considerations when you're actually talking about making that big step into a subscription service. And then we'll have August scheduled out here shortly, so keep an eye out for the blog for that. We'll get all of those dates up. All the recordings are in Tech Zone. Just a heads up to our regular viewers. I know we're doing something a little funny here, and I will confirm this date while we're all talking, because we've got VMware Explore coming up. So the 31st falls on our regular cadence. So we will be dark that week, because that's actually going to be the last day of VMware Explore. So we're not we're not going to be doing anything to distract from that, because we know a lot of folks are going to be either there in person or enjoying a lot of the on-demand sessions.
Come see me at Explore. I'll talk to you.
Yeah. You can come see Scott live. He's going to be helping out in the demo booths. Got some hands-on labs, both regular and guided hands-on labs coming up. So that's always something you want to check out while you're there. And as usual, for the folks that aren't going to be able to make it live, there's going to be a lot of good on-demand content. So with that, tons coming up. So wow, we've got folks from all over the world in here. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
This is amazing.
Awesome.
Well, thank you all for joining. And enough of me. We're at 3 minutes over. Scott's got far more important things to say. So, Scott, take it away. I am out of here.
All right. Thank you, Anders. And thanks, everyone, for joining my talk on everything VMware Aria. Today's session is about setting up a Aria Automation Config for configuration management. And there we go. And so let's go ahead and start diving in. Give me 1 second. All right. And so, like I said, I'm Scott McDermott. I'm a staff technical marketing architect for the cloud automation team, focusing on Aria Automation Config. So in this session, we'll review setting up targets and creating jobs to call state files. We'll look at organizing your state files in the file server, leveraging a top state file, and the high state workplace to apply state files at scale, scheduling the high state to run periodically, and applying a beacon and reactor to ensure your infrastructure is operating in a consistent desired state. And so by the end of the session, you'll be able to create those target groups that filter based on grains, manage your jobs and schedules, create and apply state files, leverage those top state files and apply them to the high state. And you'll know how to have a good understanding of the beacons and reactors system that is provided by Aria Config and Salt Open. And so one thing, as organizations continue to innovate with new technologies and methodologies, modern configuration management will only continue to grow in importance and impact for the organization. So for organizations to truly harness the power of their application infrastructure, they need to adopt a centralized automated approach to configuration management. And so Aria Automation Config is built to help those teams perform day 2 actions in the largest, most complex environments, and give the ability to schedule repeatable jobs, but also for self-service automation as well. And so in this example, we're creating a target for minions with an Ubuntu operating system that contain the name web. And with the target workspace here, we can create very fine-grained controls as to what minions may be included in this target group. And so a little bit later on in the demo, I'll click into creating a target group and kind of show all the different grains. As you can see, there's over 130 grains that we can base the target selection of minions on. And so this is really great for those large enterprises that have many machines, but also many different pieces of metadata that they can use to help control what minions may end up in what target groups. And so let's just take a look at a quick state file here. A state definition in a state file will have an identifier followed by the name of the state module, then the function to call, the name of the state, along with the arguments that state function will accept. And so we can kind of see that example here. And just a side note, as I'm going through my presentation, you may see these kind of asterisks or bullet points in the bottom right-hand corners. Those are direct links to the documentation about the slides topic. So later on, when we share this information, you can go back and get those links if you want to double click into the slide example. And so let's continue looking on at an actual state file. So here, we use state files to deploy and manage our infrastructure. And so this state file is a relatively simple one, but kind of a configuration that can be commonly overlooked when you're deploying and setting up machines. And that's time. Time can cause many issues in enterprise environments when machines think they're on different time than other machines, can cause all sorts of weird validation problems. And so this is a sample state file that I created to apply a standardized NTP configuration to Ubuntu machines. And if there's the time service running, it'll make sure it gets restarted as well. But you can use state files to configure pretty much an infinite number of things and attributes on your deployed minions. And so it can be anything from installing software to managing configurations like NTP or DNS, or even managing, let's say you have Apache installed and you want to manage the web pages that are on your site. This can ensure that those web pages are deployed and those files are configured the way you intend them to be. And so let's take a minute to talk about the top state file. And so this is really useful as your environment grows from your initial handful of state files into full production use. You may find an overwhelming number of state files getting created. It's kind of like when you first started deploying VMs, you had a few and then all of a sudden you have VM sprawl. This is kind of the same thing that tends to happen to state files. You start making one or two in the early stages, and then you inevitably have a bunch. And the Salta state top file can help manage this by incorporating and filtering based on grains, which is what we see in orange on the right-hand side here, how to and where to apply those state files and to ensure they get applied to the proper minions. And so let's take a little bit more look into state files. With state files, you can leverage a few different languages. YAML is the default language. And in addition to that, Jinja is also used for templating. And so here you can see just quickly in the top lines 1 and 2, some Jinja in which it's getting the pillar data from the Aria config appliance and using that in the variables for username and password that are then used to create users during the state file application. And so there are different advantages and disadvantages to using other languages. Like Python allows you to create more complicated logic that YAML just can't do. But then there's also JSON states, which are faster than YAML, but also harder for humans to read and a little bit difficult to, really stay on top of. So in addition to that, the state files are rendered on the remote salt minion. And so this keeps bottlenecks from occurring on your Aria config salt master hosts. And so that's one thing to just kind of keep in mind, is that the state files are going to be rendered on the minions themselves. And so here again, we can see that the pillar data is set as a variable and leverage it in the Jinja statements. And also we can leverage Jinja to make if then else clauses to create or update states on a file server. So for example, in line 10 here, 10, 16, and 22, we have the salt state YAML wrap inside of this Jinja if statement. And so in this example, if the file already exists, then we want to do an update. However, and that's kind of what you can see right here at the beginning of the second line above 15 here, update file. And else, if the state file does not exist, then we do a save file at the beginning of right above 21 here. And so you can also do like as you can see, a mix and match approach between Jinja and the standard YAML state file logic to accomplish what you're trying to do. And so if you have some questions on the Jinja renderer, there's a link down here as well to take a look at the many different ways renderers can work. And so digging into this a little bit more, we can see that the pillar data, I'm sorry, not the pillar data, but the packages here can be installed both with YAML or can be translated into a pure Python statement. And so when you're writing the state file, you can use really either one or both together. And so it gives you a really, really flexible and powerful way to create your state files to really accomplish anything in your environment. And so next I mentioned the high state workplace or workspace. And it's really useful not only for large environments, but small environments as well, but really in large environments with thousands of minions where you don't want to try to apply state files one at a time or manually. You can leverage the top SLS state file to map salt states to the authorized minions. And then the high state execution will run all the states that are outlined in that top state file in a single salt job. And so with one job getting created, all of the state files that are defined inside of that top state file will get executed at once against your minions. And this is kind of how we accomplish applying state files at scale. And so one of the really cool things is the event-driven automation. And with Aria Automation Config, it's built on this event-driven automation engine. And that maintains a persistent two-way connection with each minion that's under management, allowing it to immediately detect configuration drift and automate a response to enforce the desired state. This provides a powerful capability that allows the IT administrators to hedge off unwanted downstream effects and eliminate costly or time-consuming troubleshooting by establishing a configuration policy and telling Aria Automation Config to monitor and respond to any unauthorized or undesired state changes. And I'll demo this in a little bit with the Apache service where we'll stop the service and then we can monitor the event bus and see Aria Automation Config react to that and get your Apache web service back up and running. And so in addition, IT teams have the freedom and flexibility to customize their response based on the nature and severity of changes. Automated responses from Aria Automation Config could include immediate configuration drift remediation, chat or email alerts, or the creation of an IT ticket in your ITSM platform. And so for my example, I'm not alerting anyone, but I just want to ensure the service is up and running because it's a web server and it should be serving web pages. And so let's start to dive into the beacon portion of this service. And so in this example, we can see how we might monitor the Apache service. And if the minion detects a change of the service, it'll fire an event on the event bus. And since on change only is set to true, that's when it'll fire that event, as opposed to continuously checking the service and continuously updating the master on the event bus. doing that could cause, especially when you have a large deployment, quite a bit of messaging on the event bus. And so for this particular one, we don't need to check it continuously. We only want to send the message on the event bus when there's a change. And then, so also we have a delay of 30 seconds set. So in case an admin is actually there wanting to restart the service, just due to maybe he made a specific change and needs Apache restarted, we have this delay set for 30 seconds. So you don't get a constant back and forth fight between maybe an admin trying to do some actual work and the automation system trying to keep the service running. And so that delay will wait 30 seconds to see if the service is still stopped. If it's still stopped, then it'll trigger that event notification, and the master will see that notification on the event bus and react to it the way we programmed the reactor. So let's jump in and take a look at the reactor service. So in this example, it's kind of continuing the same with Apache. We have the minion to monitor the Apache service, and if the minion detects the change in the service, like I said, it'll fire that event on the event bus. And when the reactor sees that event come in, it'll see that the event is from Salt Beacon, and then this asterisk represents the ID of the minion. And so for our case, it could come from any minion. And so that's what the asterisk is there for. And with when Aria config sees the service Apache 2 come across from the event bus, it then knows it needs to run this service.sls state file in the reactor directory. And so in this next box going down, the service SLS file checks to see if the service name Apache 2 is running. And if it equals false, then we want to start the service, and the target will be the ID. Again, that ID is the minion's ID that's dynamically retrieved here. And the argument will be Apache 2 for the service name. And so if you have more questions about the reactor system, you can check the documentations on the SALT project IO site. And also we have a great blog written by one of my colleagues about working with reactors. And on this, and also there's one as well on the previous slide for working with beacons. And so if you have some questions about how this reactor and beacon system are working, I'd really say to check out those blogs. They're a great resource to kind of help you dive in deeper as to the possibilities of what you can monitor and how you can react to those events that are coming across the event bus. And so in order to manage these configuration files, the beacon configuration needs to be applied to the minions that you want to trigger events for. And so one of the better ways that I've found to manage this is to create a state file, one for beacon and one for reactor. And then I leverage a job to push those state files, the beacons to the minions, the reactors to the masters. And that helps ensure that all of the hosts have the same config and gives you, the administrator, a central place in the Aria Automation Config file server to manage these files. So the idea would be essentially you update the file in the file server, add additional reactors, add additional beacons, or update them, save the state file, and then in the jobs we'll take a look at here shortly, you can then leverage a job to push out these changes. And so these are the state files that those jobs use. And so here we can see the name of the file that we want on the file system of the host. The source of that file is coming from our file server here under the beacon and reactor directories. And we also want to ensure that we're restarting the SALT minion or SALT master service as well. post the updates to those files. And so before we jump into this, let's go ahead and bring up my environment here. And so what I wanted to start out with is talking about the creating targets. And so let me sort by description here. So these targets with description and this one are targets that I have made. The rest of these targets are actually all built into Aria Automation Config. So all these targets will come pre-built in your infrastructure for you to get started. However, if we did want to make our own, like I've done here, we can, of course, come in here to create. And by default, we have set by grain. And so if we choose ID, that would be the minion ID. And then when we get to the grain value, it helpfully shows us all of the minion IDs that are available for selection. However, if maybe we didn't want to select a specific one, but use some sort of wildcard format to target our web servers. And so that's what I did for my Apache target, is I know web is going to be in the name of all of my Apache hosts with whoever provisioned it in front and some random number afterwards. And so we can do things like have an asterisk web. And so anytime, oops, I need to do a return after that. Anytime an ID, a minion ID with web is found, it would be automatically enumerated into this target group. So we can additionally control this further by saying something like the operating system should also be Ubuntu, maybe, right? Again, this is populating the grains that it already knows about from our minions that have checked in. But if we did want to free type something in here, we could do, of course, send OS, and that's accepted as well. And you can keep going on and making and or not criteria as well to create very fine-grained target collections. And so let me just touch on minion keys momentarily. So as you add new minions into the system, they'll begin checking in. Currently, I've already accepted all my keys, but as your minions check in, you're given the choice on the pending to accept the key. Since it's already accepted, it's grayed out. You can also reject or delete the key. And with the deletion, you can that'll allow the minion to come back into pending, but rejected would just move it into rejected. And so the activity completed workspace, you can see that it's exactly what you may think it is. You can review the jobs that you've requested to run by clicking the job ID. See what states that it was working on applying. This is a restart minion. And if there's any issues or what changes have been made, you can see that clearly in the raw state. And so just quickly, I'll touch on jobs, but then we'll move to file server and then back to jobs here. So this jobs workspace has a number of pre-built-in jobs that are already set up for you out of the box. Some of these are execute high state workplace, or maybe install the Apache web server. And so with that, let's take a quick look into the file server, and then we'll get back to jobs here in a moment. So by default, Aria Automation Config comes with, these folders are called environments in the file server. It comes with 2 environment folders. One is base, and the other is SSE. These are pre-created content that you can use to get started. And so that Apache job we were just looking at points to this built-in Apache folder in the SSE environment, which has this init state file. And so looking at this, we can see that this is checked to work on these OS releases, and we can dive into what it's actually doing here. We can see quite a bit of pure Jinja and an if-then-else statement that checks for grains and does the installation appropriately. And then here we have the standard YAML state file as well. And so in addition, I generally create as a best practice like a prod environment where I would keep my production state files. You may also create a dev or a test environment where you're testing those state files before getting them into your production environment folder here. And then additionally, I have another environment called demo content in which I've added some additional state files for doing things like this would be deploying an OpenCard application onto a minion. And same with this IIS state file, which would have the Windows Server Manager install the role called web server. And so you can really expand these to install any Windows Server role. You could even have this be a large list of server roles that you want to have installed all at once. It's really up to your imagination and how the product would best suit your business needs. And so the last thing I want to take a quick mention at is our top state file. So here we're leveraging the presence state file. And so what this is saying is from our base environment, this folder, we want to apply to any minion, this asterisk, this presence state file. And so that would mean applying this state file. And so if we wanted to, we could also do something like, one second. We could also do something like this. And there's always a double space here when we're indenting. And then we can do g at for grains. And then kernel. So that would have, and again, another double space in. And we could say, actually, let's say, instead of prod, let's do SSE. And maybe we want WordPress installed on everything, right? So you could say, and since the state file is named init, all we need to do is put in the actual folder name, and it'll by default check for the init state file and apply that state file. So as you can see, you can expand this greatly and pretty much infinitely. We go ahead and click cancel on this change though. And so with that, let's get back to the jobs. And so to manage the beacons and reactors, I've created two jobs, one to push beacons. This will push those beacons onto your minions in this directory. And so this is really useful. Like I said, when you're at scale and you have thousands of minions, you don't want to try to manage these files manually. So I tend to leverage this method to push all my minions out. And for this particular job, I currently have it targeted to the Apache target group, which just has my web server. But I could target all minions or some other target, or make a new target and target that. And so Essentially, all you do is run jobs, not a test, and that would actually push it out. And same goes for the reactors, very similar concept, but for this, we'll deploy it to the SALT masters, since reactors are a master configuration, and that's why we target the SALT masters group that I created earlier. And so, as I was mentioning, there are a number of built-in states as well, and one of those is the high state. And so if we run this job, it'll execute the high state, and the high state is really just running that top state file we took a look at in the base environment earlier. And so if we come into the high state, that job is the same as clicking this high state button. So if we run this, run against all minions, great. It'll go ahead and run, and we'll get a activity. Oh, it already went in progress, and it'll run through and do what it needs to do. Oh, there it is. And so you'll see running here, and give it a few moments, and it'll turn to completed. And you can see that it's currently targeting all 6 of the minions in the environment. If one fails or some succeed, you'll see those counts updated as well once it gets to completed. And so, great. We can see that the high state completed success for all 6 of our minions. And so we can really leverage this high state to apply things across our enterprise at scale and ensure that it's continuously applied by leveraging this job. And so after we get our high state top file designed the way we want to and applying the state files that we want to have applied continuously, we can then come to schedules and schedule this high state job. And so we can create a schedule, we call it high state. Select our job. We'll want to apply it to all minions. And we'll have recurring every hour. So that'll ensure, even if something has changed and we don't necessarily have a reactor or beacon set up on it to change it back, we can ensure that we're continuously checking hourly, at least, for everything that's in our high state. And that'll help us ensure that all of our deployed minions are in the exact state we want them. And so if we go back to high state, we can see the minions we're targeting, the number of states that have been run. Good thing we have no failures. And so again, you can see if anything's changing. And so from the all minions group, 6 of them changed, but for each of the individual ones, only 1 changed, since there's only 1 minion in each group. And so the next thing I wanted to bring our attention to is the concept of that reactor and beacon I was talking about earlier. And so let's just get back to this diagram. So here we'll have a beacon conf on the minion, and that'll, for our use case, as I was showing earlier, that'll check for the Apache service status. And when that is seen to change, it'll get posted on the event bus. The master will see that come in. It'll check its reactor configuration. And if there's a reaction to be had for that particular event, it'll apply that reaction. So let me go ahead and get my SSH sessions open to my web server here, along with my Aria config host. And so what I wanted to show here is we can leverage or monitor the event bus with salt run state.event. And if we're looking for something specific, we can use this tag match. And for us, we're looking for beacon events, and specifically beacon events that are about a service. And so these asterisks are telling us it could be from any minion, and this asterisk is from any service. And so here we can see what this looks like, where we have salt, beacon, and then this is the asterisk for my minion name, and then service, and then this is the service name that's been affected. And so we can see that in this current state, the Apache is running equals true. However, if we go over here and let's say stop Apache, before I do that, there's also another command I wanted to show you over here. Is salt call beacons list on your minion. So here we can see the beacons that the minion is currently configured for. Currently have the Apache 2 service beacon set for delay of 10 seconds. Just so we didn't have to wait that full 30-second delay I was talking about in the PowerPoints earlier. And so we go ahead and do systemctl stop Apache. It'll take and wait for that 10 seconds. And then we'll see the event come over here shortly. And we should see that running is false here, which is great because we just stopped the service. And shortly, a job will kick off on the Aria config host. And that job, we don't see it here since we had the tag match set up, but a job did kick off and we can go look at it. And that job triggers the state file on the reactor side to start the Apache 2 service back. So now we see running is back to true. If we go back here to systemctl, we can do status Apache 2 and see that indeed it is running. And so you can really expand this to do things like monitor some files, like I said before, an NTP file, or maybe it's your default web server front web page and you're concerned about someone making unintended edits or edits that you may not desire to your website. And so you can leverage this to ensure that not only files, but services and processes can all be monitored and remediated within the delay time frame that you have set. But also, above remediating, you can have your reactor do other things like post messages maybe to your Slack channel for your IT staff to let them know that the service stopped on some machine. Maybe you don't want it to automatically restart, but just have a message. So that, again, is also totally doable with the state files as well. And so that's sort of what I wanted to show you as far as kind of some of my tips and tricks for setting up your Aria config environment here. And I hope this is quite helpful, and do want to check in. I haven't been monitoring the chat too closely, but let me flip back over to that. See if there are any outstanding questions. So yeah, if you have some questions, please feel free to go ahead and shoot them out in chat. And I'd be glad to try to tackle them here live. I also have my demo environment live as well, in case you wanted to jump into that for any further follow-up. But at the very least, this should give you a good idea of setting up Aria Automation Config, creating some state files, or leveraging the ones that are pre-built in to apply those to the targets, how to create the target groups to organize your resources. We didn't touch too much on it on the pillar data, but the pillar data is used to store sensitive values, and also how to leverage the high state workplace to apply your top files to your environments at scale. And so just another quick check back on questions. Oh, looks like we're still doing good here. All right, so let me just start to wrap up by reminding you about our next session, getting started understanding your cloud costs and save money with Brandon Gordon and Nico Guerrero. They'll go over how to do the showback reporting of the cost, how to handle chargebacks for the VMs, maybe to the other business units in your organization, and try to help you identify some places you could save some money by reducing your cost and from monitoring your operations. And if you want to get some more content, you want to dig in a little bit deeper, we have our Tech Zone page here. You can go ahead and take a picture of that QR code up in the top right corner. That'll link you right into our Everything VMware Aria webinar series in Tech Zone. Also, there's quite a few hands-on labs for multi-cloud environments. Go ahead and check those out. And additionally, we're continually updating our YouTube channel with recordings like this from all of our talks and demonstrations that we've been giving. And also the VMware management blog site. And that's where you'll find those Reactor and Beacon blogs, along with a number of other blogs that I've written as well for Aria Config. Another great one is the High State Workspace blog. So I definitely would suggest taking a moment to check out the blogs and the management site. And you'll probably find those quite helpful. And so finally, if you want to get some swag from this event or some rewards for your champions, go ahead and scan that QR code and answer the question with pitch. And that'll get you signed up for that as well. And so with that, I'm about ready to wrap up. Anders, did you have anything else to mention? You're still around.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. Can you hear me okay? Okay, there we are.
There you are.
I'm absolutely good. Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. And yeah, we made the pitch. You know what's coming up next. Be sure to check up our blogs on blogs.vmware.com/management. We've got the schedule built out for now, and we're actually just nailing down the schedule for August. So be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that coming up soon. And with that, I got nothing else. Thanks again, Scott.
All right, good deal. And I don't see any outstanding questions in the comments. So I hope everyone enjoyed, and until next time.
Awesome. All righty. Thank you so much.